Good morning, my little ducklings. How are you all doing today? Well, we are once again back at it with health. Reminder, computer, obey me. Rules are be respectful of our class, of yourselves, of each other. Try and be mature. I know some of this is going to make you want to laugh, want to make jokes about it, but try and be mature. It is okay to feel uncomfortable. And the reason that there's a big blue arrow next to that today is because what we talk about today might make some of you uncomfortable. It is not okay to make someone else uncomfortable on purpose. No making jokes that you know are going to make people upset. No making fun of people. So, periods. That is what we are going to be talking about today, and I'm not talking about class periods. We are going to be talking about menstruation, and I can already hear some of you freak out. Just chill. So, a period is a thing that happens to a huge number of people on the planet. Even if you don't or won't ever get them, it's important that you know how they work. Because you yourself would not exist if periods weren't a thing. Even if you won't personally have to deal with them, you should know how they work. And if you will get them, well, you should know how they work. But first, we need to talk about the body parts that have to do with periods. Those being the uterus, the fallopian tubes, which is just fun to say, the ovaries, the cervix, and the vagina. Now, the next slide that I'm going to show you guys too has a cartoon drawing of these organs. Take a deep breath, and if you feel uncomfortable, you can stop and come back to this video later, okay? So, we are going to talk about these 5 organs and body parts, and we're going to talk about what they do, and then we're going to talk more specifically about periods. So, this is internal anatomy. Each living human being has a heart, they have lungs, they have a liver, they have a stomach, they have kidneys. This is the female reproductive tract. It's found inside of about half the world's population. Anyone who can have a baby, grow a baby inside of them, has this function, or this structure. So, there is the uterus, which, if you look at number 1, is uterus. It's this whole thing right here, the biggest part of this. Then number 2, over here on the side, is called a fallopian tube. There's one on either side. 3 is an ovary. So an ovary is where eggs come from, and I'm not talking about chicken eggs, though they do start as the same kind of thing. So all humans and a good number of animals start life as an egg and a sperm coming together. The egg comes from the female or the mother. So those are stored right here in these ovaries. And you're born with all the eggs you're ever going to have. But they don't start developing until you hit puberty. And then you get about one of them a month develop into a possible future baby. 4 right here, this is called the cervix. It's the opening to the uterus. It's what separates the uterus from the vagina. And by process of elimination, number 5 is the vagina. I know it looks kind of weird. This whole thing. It's kind of like an alien. The uterus, this big part right here, the main chunk. The uterus is where babies grow when they're inside their mom. So it is a small muscular sac that can get way bigger and then go back to normal size after a child is born. It's located just above the bladder, which is where urine is stored, pee, right before you let it go. And that's why a lot of pregnant women have to go to the bathroom a lot because the baby is sitting on their bladder. And you can kind of think of a uterus as like a balloon. It normally is just kind of small and stretchy, but then when it gets blown up, it's much, much bigger. But when you let the air out, it goes back to normal size. Same thing as the uterus. It's a stretchy bunch of muscles and flesh, and it can get way big and go back to normal. And in that analogy, this little part down here, where you put your mouth to blow it up, would be the cervix. Would be the cervix. So fallopian tubes, they're exactly what they sound like. They're just tubes. What they do is they carry the egg from the ovary to the uterus. Now, sometimes you have a baby grow in the fallopian tubes, and this is something called an ectopic pregnancy. You don't need to know that word, but they can be very, very dangerous, because if the baby develops outside the uterus, then that can hurt the mom's other organs, and it's not as safe for the baby. So both mom and baby are in danger if the baby doesn't grow where it's supposed to. The ovary, again, is where eggs are stored and develop one at a time. The eggs go from the ovary to the fallopian tubes to the uterus. The cervix is the opening to the uterus. So if the balloon is the uterus, this part right here is the cervix. When a baby is born, they have to go out through the cervix and the vagina. Then it's called the birth canal. When a baby is born, they have to go from nice and cozy in the uterus to going out of these structures. It's one of the reasons that that childbirth can be pretty painful, because things are stretching that aren't really normally stretching. And then the vagina. The vagina is a stretchy, muscular passage from the outside of the body to the cervix. This is where blood leaves the body during period, and this is also where the baby leaves, unless it's a C-section. Some of you might have been C-sections. Some of you, maybe your parents or your cousins or your aunties or your siblings have had a C-section. It's when a doctor has to go in and cut the baby out of the mom. It's dangerous, it's complicated, and we will talk about those when we talk about pregnancy. On to menstruation, aka the period. Menstruation is a process. It's not just, oh, you're having your period. It is the entire process of the body getting ready to have a baby and then cleaning up when there isn't a baby. So menstruation, the period itself, is when the lining of the uterus, this red stuff right here, the lining of the uterus leaves the uterus and exits the body. So pretty much every month, a body that can have a baby, so somebody with a uterus who has gone through puberty but has not yet gone through who has not yet gone through menopause. Menopause is when someone with a uterus gets too old to have a baby and their body stops being able to have a baby. That lining gets built up, ready to have a baby, and when that person doesn't have one, the body gets rid of it and starts over. The best way I've ever heard a period described is uterus wants a baby, person does not have a baby. Uterus wants revenge. So the uterine lining is the thing that's meant to feed the baby if somebody gets pregnant. And on average, a period will last 3 to 5 days. Interestingly enough, bleeding isn't the only thing that happens when somebody goes through a period. There's lots of different stuff that periods can mess with. It can impact your mood. It can mess with your appetite, make you more hungry, make you less hungry, make you want to eat certain things instead of other stuff. It messes with your sleep. It can make it hard to sleep. It can make you tired at weird times and then not tired when you need to sleep. It can make you not sleep very well. And even if you are sleeping okay, it can make you just feel tired, just like bone deep, tired in your muscles. It can mess with your skin. A lot of people, when they are about to have their period, their skin gets really bad. They get breakouts and pimples and all sorts of nasty. Cramps. I'm assuming that most, if not all of you, have heard of cramps. So cramps, it's literally your uterus squeezing itself to try and get rid of the blood, the uterus lining. And the uterus is all muscle. So when it squeezes, it can do some serious damage. Blood, obviously, when somebody has their period, it is this lining, which is really rich in nutrients and blood, leaving the body. And it's not just blood that comes out, it's also tissue. A lot of people who have periods experience some level of pain in addition to the cramps. It can be cramps, it can be headaches, it can be muscle pain, it can be joint pain. A lot is going on in a body when somebody's on their period, and it can be pretty tough on the body. So these last two kind of have to do with the rest of these. Anemia is something where somebody's blood is kind of messed up. They don't have enough iron, and it can make them lightheaded, it can make them faint. Some people who have period anemia, it's something that they only get when they're on their period. Some people have anemia all the time. Some people get it as a side effect of their period. And it can be less than pleasant because sometimes people with anemia, if they stand up too fast, they pass out because not enough blood and oxygen is getting to their head. And then nausea. So it messes with your appetite, it messes with your sleep, it gives you cramps, it makes you be in pain, and that can all upset your stomach. So, one of the reasons that we're talking about this is, in general, periods are not all that difficult once you get used to them. They suck, but for the most part, it's not the worst thing to ever happen. However, there are lots of things that can go wrong, and a lot of times people don't know about them. For example, there's something called endometriosis. Again, you don't need to know that word. Endometriosis is something that has to do with this lining, the endometrium, the lining of the uterus. And endometriosis is basically a condition where somebody's periods are incredibly, extremely painful. And there's lots of things that can cause that pain, but a lot of times people who have these really, really, really painful periods think, oh, this is just how it's supposed to be. Periods are supposed to hurt. And so they don't go talk to their doctors. Sometimes when these people do talk to their doctor brushes it off and says, oh, you're overreacting. It can't hurt that much. And a lot of times, people who have worse than normal cramps or worse than normal headaches or worse than normal any of these symptoms don't talk to their doctor about it because they think that's just how it is. And I wanted to tell you guys about this because even if you yourself don't end up having periods, if you don't have a uterus, you might know someone who does have really, really, really bad cramps, or who does get period anemia, or who does get really, really bad mood swings. Some of you may have moms or aunties or sisters or cousins or friends who have really bad period symptoms. One of the reasons we're talking about this is because maybe if they don't realize something is wrong, maybe you can convince them to go talk to their doctor about it. Again, a lot of people who get bad symptoms don't think they're that bad and think that's just normal. I've heard one story of someone who was in the middle of taking a test in high school and their stomach hurt and they thought it was cramps. They later ended up going to the emergency room because their appendix burst. One of the organs in their body popped. And they thought it was just normal because they were used to that kind of pain from their cramps because they had really bad cramps. That's not the kind of thing that's normal. So even if you're not sure, if you think something isn't right, it's a thing to talk to family members or a doctor about. Even if it ends up being nothing, it's better to talk about it than to end up having problems. There's lots of things that can cause really bad cramps or really bad pain. There are cysts that can happen on ovaries. There's multiple kinds of cancer. There's uterine cancer, there's cervical cancer, there's ovarian cancer. And so it's important to know that, yes, periods are uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean that they're supposed to hurt. So there is this video that I would really like you guys to go watch. It is called Guys Experience Periods for the First Time. And it's a video where men go through kind of a simulation of what it's like to have a period. It's only a few minutes long, but it's a very good video. And we are going to be talking about pregnancy next. So we're talking about menstruation first because it's very important on its own, but it also leads right into talking about pregnancy. Because menstruation is your body getting ready for a baby and what happens when you don't have the baby. Uterus gets ready for a baby, you don't have a baby, uterus cleans up, starts again next month. Pregnancy interrupts that cycle, and so we're going to be talking about that next. However, this is a very important topic, and it's one that I imagine a lot of you have a lot of questions about. If we were in class right now, I would have a box in the classroom where you could write down questions that you had without having to raise your hand and without having your name on them. Since we're not at school right now, instead, I made a Google form on the classroom. You can go to it and type in a question. I will be making a slideshow that I'm going to update as I get more questions. And I'm going to make a video and post on Friday of questions that I've gotten before I make that video. So if you post a question today or tomorrow, it'll make it into the video. If you post your question after that, you can still check on the slideshow and I will be answering them. As I get them, I will answer them. You can ask any question you want and no one will know who asked it, not even me. There are settings on Google Forms that can record people's email address, and I can also set it so that you have to tell me the name. I'm not going to do that for this one. If you have a question that you want answered and you don't want to ask it so that I know who's asking, go to the form in Google Classroom attached to this assignment. It says period questions. You can ask your question and no one will know who asked it, but I will answer it, okay? I will answer questions that get asked. So I want to show you real quick. You have technically 2 assignments, but it's pretty much just the one. This image right here is in one of them. What you are going to do is you are going to label each of these numbers with what body part it is. Each question has the picture so you can still see it, okay? And then you can go and you can match which one is which. The other assignment is to watch this video, okay? It's going to be an assignment because I'm not sure how many of you are actually paying attention to what's going on these. Just watch it and mark it when you're done, okay? So, assignment 1, matching body parts. Assignment 2, watch the video. If you have any questions, go to the Google form that says period questions and type in your question. No one will know who wrote it, not even me. I will answer them in a slideshow and I will make a video on Friday. I hope you all are safe and healthy and happy, and I shall see you guys again in Zoom and on Monday. Live long and prosper, my darlings.